Welcome to my garden shed. This is the lab environment we are going to be testing the TBS6903 in. So as you guys can see in my device manager, I've already installed the drivers for the TBS6903, but if you guys haven't done that already, you can always acquire the drivers from the TBS website. Somewhere down the bottom we have the Windows 10 drivers located here. They probably work in Windows 11 too, but I haven't tested that personally. So I'll just set the scene hardware-wise now and give you guys a brief overview about how all this stuff works. We have Intelsat 19 floating out here in the geostationary Earth orbit at 166 degrees east. It is transmitting radio waves on a frequency somewhere between 11,750 and 12,750 megahertz. Those radio waves are being collected by my satellite dish here. This is an offset type satellite dish, and the technical term for it is a parabolic reflecting antenna, and it reflects and focuses radio waves at a 90-degree angle towards the focal point, which is where the LNB is located. The job of the LNB is to down convert the signal from, roughly 11,750 to 12,750 down to somewhere more manageable, like 950 megahertz to about 2150 megahertz, I believe. And then the signal is amplified, and then the signal is sent through the coax indoors to the computer in which my TBS6903 is installed into. While all this is going on, there's actually 13 and 18 volts being sent back through the coaxial cable to power the LNB. We'll talk about the significance of 13 and 18 volts a bit later on. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to do something very, very simple and decode some satellite television. So this is EBS Pro. This is my satellite TV decoding application of choice on Windows. It's very, very good. I highly recommend it. It's very user-friendly and beginner-friendly. So we need to go to the satellite tab here, which you can see I'm already opened upon. And we just need to confirm our LNB settings. So here in Australia, we use a local oscillator frequency in our LNBs of 10.7 gigahertz. So I've got custom set in the drop-down menu here, and I have my local oscillator frequency of 10.7 gigahertz configured here. And you may or may not have to hit save profile after you modify that value. So the next thing we'll do is we'll actually confirm to see whether any satellite signals are being received by our satellite dish and TBS6903 by a visual representation via the RF scan tab here. So I'm just going to confirm that I have the start frequency and stop frequencies configured up here, 11,750 and 12,750. That is the frequency in which Intelsat 19 operates here on the Eastern Hemisphere. I'm going to confirm that I have both horizontal and vertical polarization is selected in the drop-down menu by selecting both, and then I'm going to hit the start button. So yeah, people that are familiar with SDRs might be feeling something very familiar right now. This is called an FFT, essentially. Okay, so this is the screen which has given us a visual representation about what's going on up in the sky there. So this flat area here is called the noise floor, and that's made up of man-made background radiation, natural radiation, residual radiation from the Big Bang, all that kind of stuff. And these spikes protruding from the noise floor are actually signals being transmitted by Intelsat 19. Now there's two different colors here. We have red and blue. So I believe red signifies vertical polarization and blue represents horizontal polarization. So the LNB has two voltages, 13 and 18 volts. So when the TBS6903 sends 13 volts through the coax, it's configuring the LNB for vertical polarization. And then when 18 volts is sent through the coaxial cable, it is instructing the LNB to switch to horizontal polarization. And yeah, we can see nice pronounced spikes protruding from the noise floor, indicating that we've got a good signal here. Okay, what we're going to do next is we're going to actually find transponders. So transponders are different from a transceiver. A transceiver is like a radio that has two separate modules for transmit and receive. A transponder is different from a transceiver in the fact that it takes the input signal and mirrors it on an exactly different frequency. Yeah, that's the... I'm not an RF engineer, I can't really explain it more than that. So transponders are different from a traditional transceiver radio. And we can use the Discover tab to aid us in finding these transponders. So one transponder could have one channel on it, it could have 20, 30, 40 channels on it. We just don't know yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to scan ranges, and I'm going to just confirm that we have two scan ranges set from 12240 megahertz to 12750 megahertz. This is the subsection of the wider spectrum that Intelsat operates on. I keep my scan ranges very narrow. So I look at the RF scan first, and I can see here that, well, the signals aren't starting till 12260. So I've configured my scan ranges to start at about 12240, and we can just ignore that empty portion, and we can just focus on where the pronounced spikes are. So it just keeps the blind scan time nice and short, especially for the devices that take a bit longer. That's a good way to operate. So I've got my two scan ranges. I'm scanning the same frequency ranges on both horizontal and vertical polarization. So that's all sweet. We can move on. We're going to click on the blind scanner tab now, and then we are going to hit start. Now, the TBS6903 is famous for having a blazingly fast blind scan. So I've got the USB equivalent of the 6903, which is the 5927. And that blind scans the same frequency I'm scanning now in about 1 minute and 40 seconds. The TBS6903 will do the same amount in about 1 minute and 10 seconds. Maybe 1 minute 20 seconds. It's really, really fast. I love it. Such a pity they don't make these cards anymore. They really are the best in class, essentially. So we've got some transponders coming through now. We should find maybe 13 or 14 is typically what's available here in Australia on Intelsat 19. We've got 5 so far out of 13. Now, all of these could be anything. They could be data, they could be video, they could be radio. We just don't know, and that's why having a tool like EBS Pro is really, really handy. So we can actually discover what is going on these satellites. So we found 13 transponders after about 1 minute and 20 seconds. So that's about roughly what I said. So very, very fast blind scan on this thing. And yeah, basically what we're going to do now is we're just going to do something very simple and just watch television. So I know I'm very familiar with Intelsat 19. It's one of the more interesting satellites we get here in Australia, and it's got heaps of different stuff on it. So I know for a fact that this is the TV transponder. This is called TV Plus. And what we do is we just double click the transponder, and we'll be greeted with this window called the Signal Analyzer. And in the TSA, so we've got all these different tabs here. TSA tab is where all the services will be listed. So up here we've got TV channels up here. We've got these red channels here which are encrypted. We can't watch those. And then down here we've got like audio feeds and like maybe radio stations and stuff like that. So I'll just keep it nice and simple and double click on channel 1. And the Signal Analyzer will take us to the AV tab. I don't want to play too much of this in case I get copyright striked, but basically that's how you do that. And it appears that we've got some kind of Greek television, I think this particular channel is. So that's pretty cool. I'll go back to the TSA tab now, and down the bottom here we've got some radio stations, so we can just double click one of those, and we have like a radio station going on here. I'm not going to play too much of that because I don't want to get copyright strikes. So, and here as I said before, the channels in red are actually encrypted, so we can't watch them. So if I double click them, we get a black screen and we get 0 frames per second, indicating that there is encryption in use and we can't descramble this video. So do you guys remember those things that wild feeds that I told you about in part 1 of this video series? Wild feeds. So I know for a fact that we have a few wild feeds going on here. There's four currently. So what we can do is we can hold the control button on our keyboard and we can actually select multiple transponders, and we can right click and hit scan services in side panel, and that will open up this side panel and actually scan each transponder and list the channels in the side panel, so we don't have to do it the long way by going to the signal analyzer every time. So that's a very nice feature. So we'll just scan these couple of wild feed channels and see what we've got. I know for a fact at the moment Australia actually has its Olympic trials for swimming currently. So Intelsat 19 has been very busy covering the swimming at the moment. And I believe that's what it's searching for now. So sometimes channels take a while to show up. Okay. Let's finish scanning the 4 channels. So we'll just go through the channels and see if we can find anything cool. A15K is a transponder that's used by the Channel 9 network here in Australia, just for like backhauling segments and videos, and for like the nightly news and things of that nature. Most of the time it just says this screen, but other times it is sending video data. The next one we have here is just a feed channel from the same 9 network in Australia, and that's just showing a test pattern currently. So it's being broadcast from Sydney. This one's not showing up with anything, but we'll just double click that and see if we can get something usable from this transponder. I know for a fact this one's got swimming, so hopefully we can check it out. Okay, so we have a channel here called NNA HD, so let's double click that. And then we have some underwater camera footage from the Australian swimming trials for the Olympics this year. So that's pretty cool. It's actually a poor signal currently, but it's still playing anyway. That's cool. And finally, we have STS3, which I believe is also swimming. So we'll just check that out as well. And it's playing the same image of the underwater camera at the Australian swimming trial. So yeah, that's basically how you watch television and intercept wild feeds with EBS Pro. So we're finished with the EBS Pro now. I'm just going to close it now because we don't require it from here on in. The next thing I'm going to show you guys is we're going to decode some generic stream encapsulated IP data with the TBS6903. So I'm going to utilize an application called TBS TS Recorder. So I'm just going to double click on that. I know for a fact that my satellite dish is plugged into tuner 0 on the TBS, so I'm going to highlight that and then press OK. I need to open a few more things too. So we need we need to use Linux for this. So I've actually got Windows Subsystem for Linux running inside this Windows 10 installation. I'll show you the file browser because it's going to create a few files. And I need that value there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the tuner setting tab of TBS TS recorder. I'm just going to double check my LMB settings. So I'm going to change all three of these values to 10700. They should have been done already, but I neglected to do that. Apologies. And then we're going to double check our frequency, symbol rate, and polarity. So I know for a fact that there's generic stream encapsulated data on this transponder here. I'm just going to double check that the output stream is selected to GS, and then I'm going to hit lock transponder. And after a short amount of time, we should have a tick showing here. We should have the lock status as locked, and we have these signal strength bars here indicating we have a fantastic signal. So next what we're going to do is we're going to go to the capture control tab, and I'm just going to paste this path to my WSL Windows Subsystem for Linux Ubuntu installation here. So, and then I'm going to hit start record. And immediately we can see that we have a file called dump.ts created inside Windows Subsystem for Linux, and it is growing in size as we can see here. So basically what's happening is packets of generic stream encapsulated data are being dumped to this file. So everything is going well so far. So we're going to utilize a Linux utility called GSExtract, and I'm going to hit enter on this command. And then we are going to use, GSExtract is now taking the GSE packets and decoding them and dumping them to this PCAP file. So we can view the PCAP file by running this command in the second terminal window. And then we have it. We've got raw IP data being decoded in our terminal window here, which is really cool. I'm not going to delve too much into this traffic here because it didn't originate from or was not intended for me. So I'm not going to play around with that stuff because I'm not authorized to view it. So yeah, if you guys are interested in decoding generic stream encapsulated IP traffic, that is how you do that. So I can close all this now. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you guys is I'm going to show you guys how to decode MPE. So MPE stands for Multiprotocol Encapsulation, and it's falling out of favor for GSE, but basically it was the way you transmitted IP traffic over TV satellites before GSE was a thing. So MPE, it's not really used that much anymore, but it's used in Europe and I think America as well. And there's a little bit of MPE stuff in the Eastern Hemisphere, but not much to my knowledge. So we're going to utilize a application called TBS IP data. Again, my satellite dish is connected to tuner 0. And I'll press OK. Move this over here. And I'm going to go to the tuner setting tab, and again, I need to modify these values for my LMB. That should have been done already, but it's not. Apologies. I actually changed LMBs because the last LMB wasn't performing that well, so I'll put a better one on that can pull in a lot more useful data than this previous one I was using. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to double check our frequency, polarity, and symbol rate. So I know for a fact that there's MPE encapsulated IP traffic on this transponder. And then I'm going to hit lock TP, which stands for lock transponder, obviously. Okay, and after a short amount of time, we should have a locked status, and we have these nice defined signal strength bars here indicating we have an excellent signal. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the IP over DVB tab. I'm going to click show all PIDs. So PID is like the identifier of each like channel inside a transponder essentially. And I've already done it, but if you guys want to emulate this, you'll have to manually transfer all these PID numbers into the selected PIDs or PID column here. So each one needs to be manually entered by entering the number and then hitting insert PID. So I've already done that to save some time. And we can already see that I have some data being transmitted. Or being received, sorry. In my network connections down here, we could see I have a device called Ethernet 3, and it is a virtual MPE decoder adapter. So basically what's happening is TBS IP data application is forwarding these decoded MPE packets to Ethernet 3 on my computer. So we can actually utilize Wireshark in Windows to decode the traffic on Ethernet 3 and see what's going on this MPE channel. So I'll double click Ethernet 3. And there we have it. We have decoded MPE packets. I know for a fact that this stuff here is actually radio channels. They call it IP multicast radio. I don't know how to extract usable audio from this. I've tried and tried and tried. I don't know how to do it. So if anyone knows how to do it, turn an MPE dvb stream into usable audio, please drop a comment down below or email me. So that'd be really cool. So yeah, that's really all I have to show you guys for that. So that's just a couple of things that cool things you can do with the TBS6903. Obviously it's working really, really good. So we'll finish up this segment of the video, and then I'll return to my normal recording studio in my bedroom, and then I'll give my honest review and some final thoughts. See you guys shortly. Okay, we've reached the segment of the video now where I will give an honest review of the TBS6903, and wow, this thing is absolutely incredible. That's really all I have to say about it. I own two of Turbosight's USB satellite tuners, the 5927 and the 5930, and I can confidently tell you that the performance of the PCI-e cards is unparalleled. The 6903's blind scan capability is extremely fast, and it tunes into selected transponders extremely quickly and scans for TV or radio channels in the blink of an eye. I consider myself to be a casual user of PC satellite receiving hardware and software. The extent of my usage of the 6903 so far has been mainly for watching wild feeds and a little bit of GSE, Generic Stream Encapsulated IP data. And for those two purposes, this thing performs extremely well. So I'm currently testing it with a relatively small satellite dish of 90 centimeters, and the receiver in the 6903 has enough sensitivity to pull in wild feeds, which are generally weaker in transmission power compared to commercial satellite broadcast television, which are generally outputted with higher output power. And the TBS6903 synergizes very well with EBS Pro for decoding television streams, as you can see in this video here. So the 6903 has an advantage over other satellite receiving PC hardware because it has native support for the handling of GSE frames. So GSE is Generic Stream Encapsulation. When using Linux applications such as GSExtract, this card performs very well for decoding generic stream encapsulated IP traffic with hardly any frames being corrupted, as you can see in the terminal output here. For a very in-depth and technical review of the TBS6903's capabilities, go and check out this excellent write-up. The author goes into a lot more detail than I. I'm a little bit restricted with what I can do with my 6903 right now because I need a longer coaxial cable that will reach from my indoor computer to where my satellite dish farm is at the front of my property. But yeah, this guy does an awesome review, like very technical about modulations and FECs and all that kind of stuff, different kinds of software. So yeah, if you're interested, go and check that out. Okay, so for my final thoughts, I'll start off by saying that it's a shame that TBS doesn't manufacture and sell the original 6903 anymore. Generally, this happens due to suppliers no longer producing components that a particular product relies upon. I'm uncertain if that was the case exactly with the 6903, but its successor, the TBS6903X, uses different and more powerful components in its design. However, I'm led to believe these components are not well supported because they have a lack of documentation and no drivers for the particular components on the board. I don't own a 6903 and I've never used one. However, there's a great deal of information on the internet in the form of like forum posts from satellite TV enthusiasts complaining about the very poor performance of the 6903X. It's only because the components are not well supported. That's the only reason. Once it becomes properly supported, I guess it will perform. It'll be working as it should. But for the time being, I'm led to believe they're quite broken at the moment. And one of the main things that people complain about the 6903X is the slow blind scanning. So that's the main deal breaker for most people in this hobby. And most will say that the original 6903 outclasses the X variant because of this. In my honest opinion, the only realistic and practical advantage of obtaining a 6903X is because obviously they're still manufactured and sold by Turbosight. And secondly, they have the ability to receive dvb-s2X, which is a more modern version of dvb-s2. But in Australia, S2X transponders are very few and far between. So I just recommend trying to obtain a second-hand 6903, or alternatively, you could try and track down a used 6983, which is the other older but once desirable card also, which still works perfectly to this day, I'm led to believe. So yeah, that's really all I have for part 2 today. I hope you guys all enjoyed this sneak peek into the esoteric hobby of satellite television that a few of us RF enthusiasts enjoy. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. Bye.